Hello, good day to everyone. You are welcome to It's All About Love with Anna. For those who don't know me, my name, so I'm Anna. So today you are going to be talking about Mother Teresa. You are going to be talking about Mother Teresa in the 6th episode. So for those who didn't watch the previous episodes, I advise you to go back and watch them because you'll learn something about Mother Teresa. So in the last episode, on the 5th episode, I finalized by saying that Mother Teresa opened a hospice or a huge place, a house to accept people in need, though for those who were dying in the streets, those homeless people, those who didn't have money to pay their hospital appointments or stays in the hospitals, those who were dying in the streets, those who were dying without food. She accepts everyone in that house. And so she gave the name the Calicut House. Of course, initially she had lots of diversities, but from the moment people began by seeing what they were doing, they changed their minds and they began by helping them as well. More and more people came to help Mother Teresa, and the volunteers that were there, like doctors, nurses, and lay people, and more people came to help support them. And so, but gradually, Mother Teresa was doing commanded recognition. She was getting so popular for what she was doing. And then many people were coming to help, including high-caste Indo ladies. So many were coming. And so for those who were afraid of rolling their sleeves up, Mother Teresa used to say, in her own words, she used to say, I'm going to read to you, and she used to say, don't be a spectator. Look with your ears and your eyes, and you will be shown what you can do to help. So many people go and look at what they were doing. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to. And some of them were afraid. And so she'll say to them, look, don't look, just don't look, just do something, just pay attention, and what you are doing, and you'll see what we are doing, and you are going to do what you do. So they, of course, some of them they told them how to do things, but it was not easy how to do things. I believe that helping them, washing the sick people, doing things, it was just a question of time for them to learn, for the people who wanted to help to learn and see what the girls and Mother Teresa were doing, and then they would learn straight away. Because this is what all should do. It's just human lives, saving human lives, like saving our own families, because they were becoming family to them too. So that was incredible. Many people joining. But, well, now Mother Teresa by that time was satisfied because she had a huge, enormous place to help these people dying in the streets. But she also had long been concerned with the leprosy sufferers. Because in India at that time, they had so many leprous people. So people were dying of leprosy wherever where they were. And so the missionaries of charity were already running a leper asylum at Gobra, on the surroundings area of Calcutta. But Mother Teresa's desire to alleviate their suffering was burning in her heart. In a daily basis. She knew how they were suffering, although she never had leper, but she knew the suffering they had, because they were excluded from the society also. They couldn't be around people, other people. They had to be outsiders, isolated, probably in places like kind of ample places if they were not in mountains, because probably they didn't have much mountains in Calcutta, but they would have to have be in a place, isolated place. Well, and so with the help of lay people and the British community in Calcutta, because Mother Teresa was getting very well known and people were helping her, especially the British community in Calcutta, including and mainly Anne Blakey, who had become friend with Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa became an active campaigner on her behalf. Wow. However, because of her discomfort in public speaking, Mother Teresa was very shy. She couldn't talk. She was afraid of talking in public, and so this Blakey, this girl, this lady Blakey, announced to work on her behalf in the campaigns. So Mother Teresa touched people's hearts. She would say that she and the missionaries of charity would not wear gloves because in their eyes they were tending the body of Jesus Christ. So Mother Teresa really was touching people's hearts around her, in Calcutta and spreading around India. And so she would say that, like I said, she would have to touch these people, lepers with their own hands. Although some critics, because probably critics were going to criticize them because they probably thought they were going to be the disease, leper disease was contagious and they were going to be get sick too, but they didn't mind about it. They were treating the lepers like Jesus would treat them, not scaring about the sickness or the disease. They'd go and touch them anyway. Wow, that's a very good achievement and a very courageous achievement, because many people were not doing it, they were doing it. And so their attitude was subject, like I said, to many criticisms, but they kept thinking that their approach should be judged by the amount of love they put onto the actions, as their vocation was to belong to Jesus, not to the world. So if they were falling to critics, probably they wouldn't touch the lepers. They would follow, so if they were following people views, they wouldn't touch the lepers. But they were here in this world to follow Jesus, to follow God. And what they had to do is to do what Jesus would do, touch others with their hands. And so they were not listening to the world, but to God and Jesus. And they didn't care with the critics or judgments they would have. They were always, or anyway, they were always touching them. So a leprosy fund and leprosy day also started at that time, in 1952. And on the collection box's words were highlighted, "Touch the lepers with your compassion." Touch the lepers with your compassion. That was incredible, with your compassion. So the idea was to act not in fear or getting the disease, but in love. That was the idea. Looking at the leper as they were looking at Jesus, whose hands and feet could feel no pain. That's incredible. This is what Mother Teresa was following, and the girls and people were helping, volunteers were following Matthew 25:40 scripture. Do to me as you do to one of the least of this. So they were touching Jesus as they were touching the people in need, the lepers. They did not think just of, if they were thinking just they were going to touch the sick person, a leper, and not focus on Jesus, they wouldn't do anything. But their focus was in Jesus. They looked at the leper person, and they saw the leper as it was Jesus. And Jesus is powerful. It's the most powerful thing you have. And so they knew that touching them, their hands would bring healing to the lepers, because Jesus was in them too, in Mother Theresa and the volunteers and the girls. Jesus was as well walking through them to heal these lepers. Their hands touching them was bringing healing to the lepers. That's incredible. And so people shouldn't be afraid of touching them, because they had Jesus in them and they were touching Jesus. And if you touch Jesus, we cannot get diseases, because Jesus is healing, is light. And they would see this focus. This was their focus, not the sickness and disease and death. That's why they became very successful in what they were doing, Mother Theresa and the volunteers. So Mother Theresa prayed for divine providence. And in a short period, international aid and medical doctors specializing in leprosy began to volunteer their services. Well. Mother Theresa and the girls had already doctors, volunteer workers, specified in so many diseases, ailments. But then, after that, many doctors specialized in leprosy, they began by helping. They arrived as well to support Mother Theresa and the lepers. So, in the meantime, Jacqueline Decker, who had sought entry into the Missionaries of Charity, became sick with a debilitating spinal disease. Jacqueline Decker was a friend of Mother Theresa. They met many years before and they became friends. But at that time, in 1950s, Jacqueline became sick with, like I said, a spinal disease. And as a result, she was forced to return to Belgium, because if you go back to the previous episodes, you know that I mentioned Jacqueline Decker. She was Belgian. She went to India very young, like Mother Theresa. They became friends. And then she, because of her sickness, disease, she had to return to Belgium, to her own country. But Jacqueline Decker had maintained correspondence with Mother Theresa, who encouraged her to become a spiritual bond to the Missionaries of Charity. In other words, Jacqueline Decker, was to pray for the Missionaries of Charity and Mother Theresa, adopting a sister and praying and writing to her. So they were going to initiate a new rule in the congregation, in the Missionaries of Charity. So, and Jacqueline Decker was going to be the first one. So Jacqueline Decker was going to adopt a girl, or Mother Theresa or another girl, and pray for them and write for them, praying always, being in spirit with them all the time, and writing to them. And then after Jacqueline Decker, more people, sick people, began by joining Jacqueline Decker and praying for adopting a nun or a novice or a follower of Mother Theresa to pray for her and other people too. So Jacqueline Decker was to pray for a person and writing and praying for her. But from then on, like I said, the sick and suffering co-workers began. Because of this situation with Jacqueline Decker, more people followed her. And in January 1953, Mother Teresa drafted the basis for the link and suffering co-workers, in which she was convinced that suffering drawn them closer to God. Yeah, she really was convinced. So at that time, it began the suffering co-workers, people who were suffering, who couldn't do their work, going daily life, going to the city or helping the poor of the poor. They couldn't act with their bodies, so they would have to be at home because of their debilitated illness, and so they would have to pray for someone, adopting someone, and they began by doing that and writing to them, and that was incredible. It was an interaction and solidarity for everyone. So, and Mother Teresa believed that in that way, them being sick and praying for others would drive them closer to God. And so that link was basically for those like Decker, whose health problem made them unable to physically help, like I said, and but on the other end, they were able to provide emotional and spiritual support by offering their prayers to help the sisters, the brothers, because as you know, we are going to see that after a while a brother congregation was opened as well, because brothers were needed to support the women too in their job, in their work, in the mission as a charity. So and then the priests as well. It was another association for priests. They created an association for brothers, for priests, for everyone in need. So those sick and suffering co-workers were to become a life-giving partners with the free service to the poorest of the poor. That was what Mother Teresa had in her mind. Felt that was the best thing to do to help everyone, because they really needed the nuns, the Mother Teresa, the girls, the volunteers really needed prayer, really needed support, because as well they went through many difficulties too, and so they were human beings too. Although they were helping the needy, they were in need too, emotionally and spiritually, so they needed help, they needed prayers too, and that's why it started. So in 12th of April 1953, the first group of missionary sisters of charity, the 10 sisters, were to be professed, and they needed to support the support of people who had a special power with God, the prayer warriors that included Jacqueline Decker and others like Jacqueline Decker. So that day they took their first vows in Calcutta's Roman Catholic Cathedral, and Mother Teresa made their final vows as a missionary of charity. The Ash Wash period, that one that I've spoken so many times, supported them in the early years, and by the late 1950s, he said in his own words, manifestly, the finger of God is there. Well, if you didn't watch the previous programs, you know that I spoke about the Archbishop period. Archbishop period initially was contesting Mother Teresa. Was kind of an obstacle to the Mother Teresa's plans of going around the world and going to help the poor. He believed that she was not going to be able to do what she wanted to do. He felt that she was going to give up. But because he saw that she continued persistent and insistent in doing the works of God, and she never gave up, then he began by believing in her. And by the 1950s, he said, manifestly the finger of God is there. He now knew that it was not just Mother Teresa's mind, it was God encouraging her and supporting her all the way. And so he couldn't oppose to it. And initially he was opposing her, Mother Teresa. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, that year the missionaries in 1953, that year the missionaries of charity were increasing in number. So more and more sisters were coming. And so they began to seek a larger property, because they were still, up until 1953, they were still in that house that they had, the owner gave for free to Mother Teresa. They were living in top floor with the house with more couple of families. But because the girls were increasing in number, so they began by finding another house, a bigger house, to accommodate all these girls. Mother Teresa found a Muslim man who was willing to sell his house for them for a cheap price. Well, that was good for her. Two houses surrounding a central courtyard in 54A, Lower Circular Road in the center of Calcutta. Well, it had a larger chapel at that place, a refectory and different rooms. Wonderful. Compared with the previous ones, it was much better. It was perfect for them. It was what Mother Teresa believed and saw. Father Henry, Father Henry was someone who was always supporting Mother Teresa, had been always supporting Mother Teresa, a very good man. And so Father Henry worked on Mother Teresa's behalf, and the Archbishop of Calcutta bought the house. They bought a house for Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was getting very fortunate, because she was getting what she wanted, not what she wanted, what God wanted her to do. That was the main thing. And soon afterwards, the missionaries of charity moved to their new home. They left the previous one, the small one, to a bigger house. However, Mother Teresa made sure to live in extreme poverty. In spite of being in a bigger house, a good house, she made sure to live in extreme poverty, because she was following the principles of Franciscan principles of poverty. You know that. I mentioned it previously. They carried out their lives with their cotton saris, the girls and Mother Teresa, and habits, and a pair of sandals, the crucifix, a rosary, an umbrella, a metal bucket for washing, and a mattress to sleep. This is what they would have, not more than that. They understood, Mother Teresa understood, that was enough for them. Hallelujah. That was enough for them, for their survivance. Hallelujah. Sometimes when it was too cold and they had to go in the streets, they would wear their bed covers and shawls to protect them from the cold. What an incredible situation. What do you think? They didn't have anything. They had just enough to survive. And so they would have to go to the streets, especially when it was too cold. They didn't have a coat like many people have. A coat. Like I have a coat or you have a coat. They didn't have that. They have, I believe that they have a cardigan, they had the saris. But if it was very cold, they would get their blankets. The blankets they used to sleep, they were sleeping, their own blankets from their own beds. And they would take them to the streets because it was too cold. But once she said, Mother Teresa in her own words said, we do not want to do what other religious orders have done through history. and begin by serving the poor only to end up unconsciously serving the rich. In order to understand and help those who have nothing, we must live like them. And she continued and said, the only difference is that these people are poor by birth and we are poor by choice. This is what she said, Mother Teresa. Wise words. She didn't want to be like other congregations. They began by helping the poor, but they were helping the rich. She understood that in order to understand the poor, those who have nothing, she said we must live like them. Those who don't have physical richness, she would have, and they would have to live like them, to understand their poverty, their minds, their thinking. Yes, that's incredible. And she knew that the only difference between them and the Mother Teresa and the girls and the poor, it was because they were poor by birth. But Mother Teresa and the girls were poor by choice. That's incredible. Think about this. Think about what was going on in her mind. Such a dignity in that mind. Selfless person, courageous person, wise person. And many of you may think, why she had that light? Why did she have this light, this bravery, this knowledge? Well, this knowledge just came from God. She was always thinking in God, and that came just from God. It was not from her. It was God walking through her and in her. And she had this understanding, beautiful understanding, and this wisdom, because it was God's wisdom given to her. And during the week, what they used to do, Mother Teresa and the girls, they used to rose. They rose at 4:40 in the morning and washed themselves with water from the thanks house and a tablet of soap, which was also being used for clothes and body. They had morning prayers and then breakfast, which included water, milk powder, and 5 chapatis spread with ghee and a vitamin pill, because they needed to have pills, nutrients for their bodies. They needed to be strong to help the ones who were weak physically. Wow, wow, wow. By 7:45 in the morning, they were out in the streets. They would come back at lunchtime and do home chores, rest, prayers, spiritual reading and instructions from Mother Teresa. Then, after 2 in the afternoon, they would go back to their duties in the streets and slums. While outdoors, Mother Teresa instructed the girls to use their rosary and pray, always. And so, if you hear their stories, you know that, and you see some documentaries of the missionaries of charity, you see even nowadays, they always carry a rosary and pray in the streets. And this is what Mother Teresa would focus as well. It's telling the rules to the girls, and the girls had to follow the rules, and they were following the rules, her rules. That's incredible, beautiful. So, I hope you took something from this today, this story of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. So I hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed myself because I'm always learning something about Mother Teresa of Calcutta. So I hope really you took something, even if it was just a word, because it's an extraordinary example to all of us, an extraordinary legacy to all of us, for us to follow. I know that we may not do many things that Mother Teresa did, because our role in this world is always different from anyone. but we can do sometimes similar things. So for now, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. I can't wait to see you again, and that's going to be so incredible to continue talking about Mother Teresa. So for now, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and have a lovely rest of the day or night, wherever you are. Thank you again, all the best for you. I'll see you next time. Thank you.